foreigner who's just landed up in India and is trying to set up a bank account, typically what are the challenges one should be prepared to face?
Immediately, like the minute you're off a plane, you have to have a SIM.
A year in India, how's it been so far?
I have not had my wallet with me for 9 months now. The flip side of the digital is everything is on your phone.
Hello and welcome to this podcast series, Navigate with HSBC. Now, if you're an expat who's living in India or thinking about moving here, we hope you're going to find this podcast quite helpful. Because moving to a new country can be an exciting adventure, but it also comes with its fair share of challenges, especially when it comes to managing finances. So our guest today is not only an expat himself, but also a banker who now calls India his home, and he's here to share his experience of settling down in the country and, more importantly, managing his financing with all the ups and downs that come with it. So without any further ado, let me introduce our guest, Tom Acton, who's the head of strategy at HSBC. Tom, thanks very much for speaking to us here and being our guest today.
Thank you very much for having me.
Well, it is our pleasure. Start by telling us what brings you to India.
I've now been in India a year. I've done my MBA back in Cambridge at the end of 2023. I thought to myself...
very recently.
Relatively recently, yeah. And I know there was a bit of, I want to do something different. We as a family thought it'd be good to do something different. Our kids were young. And India is just an amazing place. It's growing. It's there's huge opportunity. HSBC, who I work with, is growing in India massively, and the economy, the financial sector. So everything sort of led to India being the place to come. So we've been here a year and not looked back really.
Well, moving lock, stock, barrel with your family now a year in India, how's it been so far?
It's definitely been a transition. I think there's four of us in the family, two young boys, 6 and 8, and my wife and myself. I think we've all probably had slightly different paths through the year. I think for me it's been a hugely positive journey. I've felt most things have been relatively seamless. I think my wife has, you sort of sometimes forget, she's also actually now not got the job she used to have. So she's almost gone from having a job that she'd been in for 15 years to not having a job, in India. So she's been transitioning and trying to build up her practice. She's a psychologist.
Oh wow. Okay.
And then the two boys have changed school, had to kind of reacquaint themselves with a completely different school, completely different culture. So I think so we've all had a bit of a journey, which very positive, I think.
Well, that's good to hear. But you said everything here so far has been seamless. What about opening your bank account? How was that experience?
I think there's probably two answers. So one for me, I work for HSBC. HSBC's global money proposition meant, and through international banking, I could actually start all of the process before I arrived. So actually for me, I was able to make sure, got in contact with the local Indian market. I'd had my account started to be set up, and they'd started to guide me through the process pre-arrival. I think my wife was slightly different. She arrived to find bank cards not really working, not really accepting, her mobile phone for anything, not accepting some of the Western, payment methods at all. So I think we both had a bit of a different start to the journey.
So was it easier for you because you're already a banker and you're banking with HSBC? You had an account there that you could transfer here? Yeah.
So from my perspective, I had a UK account with HSBC. I set up a global money account. I was then able to, for the first part before my official documents were completed, I was able to just move money into a global money account in rupees and then just use my card as a local.
Okay.
Then the bank helped me just finalise setting up my Indian local account, which meant, within sort of days of being here, I was, pretty well set up and sorted. So that was, sort of very positive from my point of view.
But, imagine a foreigner who's just landed up in India and is trying to set up a bank account. Typically, what are the challenges one should be prepared to face?
Yeah, and I've seen this actually. So lots of the expats I've dealt with who come across, have not had a seamless journey at all. I think the big thing I'd say is you need a mobile SIM like immediately. Like the minute you're off a plane, you have to have a SIM. The whole country seems to operate on SMS and OTPs.
Yeah. We love our OTPs.
They absolutely love the OTPs. And you need some sort of proof of where you live and who you are, which is quite difficult because they'll ask you for a utility bill or a rental agreement, which you won't necessarily have. But you need to have both of those two things, because the minute your phone is set up and the minute you can tell someone where you live and that you're actually a bona fide person in the country, suddenly the whole world, so the whole country opens up to you.
You're a legitimate person.
You're a legitimate person, yeah. And then the other thing is the country just revolves around QR codes and this concept called UPI,
That must be a new thing for you. Yeah.
So having lots and lots of apps that link to your bank account that you can then make transactions to, and everything's kind of instantaneous, and using QR codes in every shop is very, very different experience.
I mean, was it a joy to discover it? How when did you first come across this service?
Before I actually moved, we came across in October. Before we moved in December, we thought we were doing a bit of the tourist attractions in Bangalore, and we went to the local zoo, Benegata Zoo, for any of the local Bangaloreans. And we came out, and the kids wanted a coconut, and there was a guy in the car park selling coconuts, and we went to buy the coconut off him, and he basically wouldn't accept cash, and he wouldn't accept our international cards, and he basically just kept flashing this QR code at us, which we had no idea what this was, but this is the famous UPI. And so for me, what was fascinating was the fact this guy is able to be that technology and financially
embedded,
literate.
So do you now use HSBC Simply Pay? There's the app that you have in your linked to your account.
Yeah, so good thing with the HSBC proposition for me is my bank account is linked through my UPI. I've got Simply Pay for local transactions here. I have a global money account that then means I can switch between UK and Indian rupees if I need to. So actually, it's actually worked pretty well for us. And a lot of other expats I've met don't have that facility. So what it's meant is it's really hard to bank. So for me, actually, I'm able to even see all of my accounts in one place, one HSBC app. I've got all of my ability to transact across those different countries. So it just has made my life a lot more simple.
Well, I'd assume everything was a little easier for you being a banker, being with HSBC yourself, but setting up an account for your family, your spouse, and managing transactions for your kids, how easy or how hard has that been?
I wouldn't want to give advice on marital finances. However, what I would say is the first few weeks of living in India, being constantly rung up by my wife, wanting me to verify OTPs or help her make transactions where her card didn't work in supermarkets or shops, I think was infuriating for both of us. And then we found out, UPI works for one account. You can't have two SIMs attached to one UPI. So there's all of these little things you start to pick up as you move along. So she's now set up on her own. So she's got, she's now got a bona fide HSBC account. She's got UPI, her own mobile SIM, and I think that for her has meant that she's independent, which is good, so she doesn't have to verify everything through me, which is, and that means also I don't have any of the admin. But I know a lot of the other expats struggle with this because they can never quite get both people set up. So my advice would be make sure everyone has the ability to transact, because it can be slightly painful otherwise.
For which you need a local SIM. So that's the first thing you must do as soon as you land in India.
Local SIM is absolutely key.
How did you manage your finances when you just moved here, before you were able to set up everything? How were you managing finances?
I think before we came, it was basically moving UK money into Indian rupees through global money, and almost just managing by a bit of cash flow coming in that we could just keep tap of. I think the problem with India for us has been everyone wants UPI everywhere. So the volume of transactions you do are vast, but the sums of them are smaller. So you've almost got an issue of just dealing with the traffic of it. But everything's now real time. I get 24/7 access to banking support. So all of that's a lot better than it would have been on the other side of the planet. I'm able to actually get relationship management support literally via WhatsApp. I think a combination has made life a lot easier.
Okay, so opening a bank account was not too hard. Managing your financing was a bit easier. What about getting a credit card in India?
Credit card for the general expats, I think, has been very, very problematic. I think anyone trying to work out how to get credit scored, understand what limits they should have, has almost been impossible. I've not really heard many people who've actually managed to do it.
Yeah, what are some of the stories you've heard about people trying to get a credit card?
There's no reference of how long they've been in the country. There's no proof of their sort of KYC. Their sort of spending limits aren't understood because they haven't been there long enough. So they've had problems. So
how do people solve for that?
Well, I can't speak for them, but in my situation, HSBC have a credit portability. So actually, because I'm a global customer, they can almost see my financial history and understand where I am, from that perspective. So actually, I'm not new to HSBC in India, which actually meant I had a credit card definitely within the first few weeks of being in the country.
Okay. Was it as easy for your wife as well to be able to get her own card?
She was part of the HSBC customer group, so she's a joint card holder on it, no issue there. So that's
okay, wonderful.
And she enjoys spending on it, so that's so it's obviously working.
It's easy to spend, it's
exactly.
easy to spend.
So so the UPI thing I think is brilliant. The QR codes, access to your phone is amazing. How you can get by. I have not had my wallet with me for 9 months now. Absolutely no need. Everything
Yeah.
is on my phone, completely digital. The only thing I'd say, the flip side of the digital is everything is on your phone.
Yeah.
So the other challenge of it is
Yes.
your phone is...
Concentration risk.
Yeah, exactly. My screen time on my phone has probably tripled in the year I've been here. But it's just receiving the OTPs and the verification and the getting told about every transaction that's gone through.
Yeah.
To me, it's still positive. You know what's going on at any given time,
Yeah,
which is
well,
good.
it has its pluses and negatives, of
Yeah.
course. But are there any specific financial tools you found here, any habits you've developed, that you found particularly helpful banking in India?
One of the things that's very different from the West, at least, is tax, and tax is predictive in India versus retrospective in say, the UK. So you're almost having to look at, say, interest balances and looking forward. So I think for me, actually, we've had to be far more understanding of budgets, understanding how interest works for bank accounts, making sure credit card, everything is a bit more visible now. And actually, from our point of view, the apps and the support we get from the relationship management has been amazing to help us through all of that. So we've not had any major struggles. I think the biggest probably struggle that most expats will have is the volume of UPI transactions going through. Because it is just, everywhere is QR codes, and there's just hundreds of, little things piling through the account. So keeping on top of those is half the challenge. For other expats, I've understood it to be either impossible or near torture.